शिव 5 एक हो गया।
एक मिनट अपन अपन अभी स्टार्ट करेंगे, 1 मिनट में स्टार्ट करेंगे। स्वप्निल रेडी? Rajnish has joined or not?
I'm here. Just let me know when we have to start. Rajni sir is also here.
Rajni sir, then we can start. No issues. Hardik sir, we are starting.
Good evening, everyone, and I welcome you all to another Saturday with the Thane branch to this amazing seminar on forensic audit opportunities for the future. Before moving ahead, I would like to specially thank the speaker for the session. Obviously, they are going to share their knowledge with us, but more importantly, for accepting the invitation at the very last minute. We had a different speaker who was down on his health today morning and who had cancelled for the seminar. And we will always be grateful for Hardik sir for accepting our request, accepting our invitation at the very last moment, and coming up and being present and to share his knowledge on this wonderful seminar, forensic audit opportunities for the future. Before moving ahead, I would like to thank you all for joining us for all the sessions every week. We are really grateful for your support and for wonderful help and blessings that you have been providing us with. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our past chairmen of the Thane branch, CA Naveen Deria sir, CA Madhukar Chavan sir, and all the past chairmen there with us at this seminar. Without any further ado, I now request the chairman of the Thane branch, Shiv Bhagwan Asawa sir, to present his opening remarks.
Thank you, C.S. Swapnil, respected seniors in profession, dear members, and my colleague in Thane branch. A very warm welcome to all of you. We team Thane branch are extremely delighted to have you all in this seminar. Today, we have seminar on forensic audit, opportunities for future, and to deal with the subject, we have CA Hardik Chokshi sir. Formal introduction will be given by CA Rajnish Sharma short while from now. A few announcements. We are happy to inform you that our CSR initiative, that is mega mask distribution, is still going on. We have almost 70 plus chartered accountants joined in this movement. We have covered almost 80 locations across Thane, apart from 2,000 masks given to TMT for bus drivers, contractor and other staff. Our vaccination drive help members, students and their family members. Still, if anyone left out or finding difficulty to get their jab, you can approach either me or Swapnil or for that matter, any other managing committee member will definitely help you out. Because of our ongoing relationship with couple of hospitals, we can get your vaccination done even whether it is first dose or second dose for you, your family members, your article, your students, your staff, anyone for that matter. There are 2-3 more important announcements. Our extremely popular series, Vocal for Local Speaker 7th edition will be on 22nd to 24th July with newer topics, and all the speakers are from our region only. If any member interested, please do connect with us. We will definitely make platform available for you. Thane branch initiated mega outreach program for members. We have sent you a Google Doc link via SMS and WhatsApp. Please fill the form so that we can serve you in much better way in coming days. And probably our Thane branch, from there will be called to you, Thane branch, in case if you have not yet filled out, please do attend the call and try and convince your colleague also to fill the form if you are Thane branch member. And respected members, I encourage you to freely ask any question to CA Hardik Chokshi sir, but preferably through chat box only. One more thing, very important announcement. Your Zoom name should be your membership number followed by your name. Please do not blame us if we cannot upload your CP credit due to non-availability of membership number. Now I request CA Swapnil Kolte to take charge of further proceedings.
Thank you, Shiv sir. I would not waste any further time of yours, but I'll just take a minute to thank the Thane branch committee members for always being there, especially CA Chetan Chadwa ji and CA Rajnish Sharma and all the other colleagues who have always helped us out to organize all such events. Gratitude is the best attitude, and that's the motto that we are working out with. Now, without any further ado, I would now request CA Rajnish Sharma sir, the Vikasa chairman, to introduce our speaker for today.
Rajnish,
So please give me a moment. I'll just get in touch with him.
Yeah. I think he's facing some network issue. Anyway, let me check. Otherwise,
Hi. Good evening, everybody. Shivwan sir, good evening. Swapnil.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rajnish.
Professional practice since 18 years and is a partner at Choksi and Choksi LLP. He also holds a diploma in information systems audit. As a practitioner, he has domestic and international experiences in risk advisory, forensics, digital transformation, net asset valuation from mutual funds, restructuring, and advising startups. His recent works in the forensic include investigation of wind-up schemes of a mutual fund, providing analytical support in the Bollywood drug case, and conducting fair valuations of Indian Premier League, which is IPL cricket teams, on behalf of law enforcement agencies. Along with professional colleagues, he has co-authored books for the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and BCAS Society on Practitioner's Guide to Audit on Small Entities, 2019 edition, Non-Banking Finance Companies, a Treatise, and Internal Audit of Mutual Funds. He has given papers on bank LFAR overview of accounting standards of non-company entities and interplay with ICDS, forensics, due diligence, professional skepticism in the audit to the ICAI and BCAS. Being a passionate professional, he believes mentoring and networking amongst professional firms is the best way forward to grow together as a profession. Presently, he is a mentor to the company promoted by Young CAs that provides online audit balance confirmation tool. This company has been recognized by ICAI as a software service provider to the profession. In the past, he had been co-opted member of the committee for members of industry of the ICAI. He is passionate about his sports as well and believes that helps him to face the challenges of life. Thank you very much. CA Hardik sir, I request you to please take on the session.
Thank you. Sir, you can now share your screen. Yeah, thank you.
So, sir, is the screen visible?
Yes, yes.
So, thank you, Shiv Bhagwan Sirji. I mean, today morning when you gave me a call, I mean, I was so happy to hear you because I've always been watching you on the other side, and I thought I'll get one opportunity in my life to be sitting along on the dais with you. I think today is that day for me. So, thank you, sir. Also, my high gratitude to the Thane branch of the WIRC. We have been watching your programs all the way since the lockdown started. I mean, it could be the startup and taxation programs, or the inspection and seizure, the art of taxation, and so many other programs that you have been conducting wonderfully for your members, including the recently vaccine drive. I just heard of that you are still continuing the vaccine drive. It shows how much care you have for your members, and just not their members, their families, their relatives, their office staff. So we really are thankful to the Thane branch for having this kind of an approach, a positive approach towards everybody. And I would like to start with my thanks to everybody of you for having me here. You can please call me by my name, Hardik. I'm no sir, so we are just professional colleagues sitting together. And I think we'll make a very nice Saturday evening. I will take you through the presentation, and later on, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. I will definitely try my best to reply to all the questions. In case I'm going fast, please write on the chat box. I will definitely slow my speed of talking. So today's lecture is on forensic audits, opportunities for the future. Before I start, it's just a general disclaimer that I have that these views are of mine on my personal capacity, and it does not represent my organization. The views are very personal in nature, and I'm not giving any views or suggestions or opinions, though we may be discussing some of them on any policy matters of the government or the Institute of Chartered Accountants or any other body. So the question which comes up, before we go to the opportunities, what has changed that these opportunities have started to create, and what has changed on the ground? I mean, in the recent 2000, 2003, we used to do so many audits at those days, that, we used to get inspections of mutual funds, depository participations. We used to audit charitable trust, special audits of income tax. So this is something which is already being done in some way or the other. But over the years, what has changed that now everybody is saying that forensic audit is the future of the profession? Let me just take you through some of the recent changes which have happened. One of them being the changes in the regulatory and especially the very hard law enforcement oversight which has come in. To give you illustrate an example, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had come out with a shell companies list. We are all aware that there is no strict definition of a shell company anywhere, but there is still a shell company list which had come out, and all these companies which are listed on the stock exchange have been put into an investigation. The SFIO has, in the recent time, as we have been watching every day on TV, they have been taking a lot of hard actions on a lot of fugitives, especially cases, and a lot of companies are under investigations. Over the period in the last few years, what has happened that number of cases under investigations have suddenly increased, be it the SFIO, the CBI, the EOW, and so on and so forth. In addition, the government has come out with acts such as the Fugitive Offenders and the Black Money Act to ensure that the evaders do not escape the gamut of the law. Crisis management, of course, now there is a quicker response, which is required towards allegations. Today you see something on the, TV today evening that the auditor has resigned. Suddenly the next day morning, the share price comes down. What is it? Is it something wrong? It was always in the normal course, but somehow there has always been a little belief that no, something could be wrong behind the scenes. So, one needs to have quicker responses towards any kind of an allegations which may come up in the public domain. Not that everything is wrong in this world. Companies Act has defined fraud. It has brought in a lot of onus and responsibilities on the directors, the auditors especially. And of course, now the directors are in a position to write to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to also conduct investigations where they believe so. Over the recent years, corporate governance and directors' trustee liabilities have increased, including the auditor's professional indemnities. So these are one of the major reasons that these changes require a good investigation which brings out the facts and brings out the right issues in front of the entities. Emerging technologies like the Internet of Things, cloud computing, these new technologies which are coming in, they are generating a lot of data. And today, when we are auditing any company, you would find that the data just doesn't reside within the accounting systems. It resides along with various other connected instruments. So this way, there are these chances that in the future, a lot of data needs to be matched and verified and validated and to confirm with the accounts. Organizations are encouraging constructive challenges by the auditors. We are all aware how it's looked upon. Today, when an auditor goes to a company and he's expected to give an opinion which is at times beyond the true and fair view that he would always want to give. Fraud has been defined at various regulations and law, but of course, fraud has been loosely defined and it has been defined differently. Again, a forensic is a fact-finding report, and fraud is something which finally should be concluded by the investigating agencies or the court of laws. Just to illustrate, the number of cases which have increased from 2009, 10, 12 to 2016, 87. This was the latest data, but as of date, even more number of companies are under investigations. Let's come to the purpose, we talk about forensic, but we talk about two things, as a forensic accounting and forensic investigation, that is forensic audit. What is the principal difference between the two? So in the case of forensic accounting, it is a fraud which is against the business. So let's say there is a vendor fraud or a customer fraud which has happened. So the forensic auditor would ideally study and interpret the accounting evidence, and this kind of an forensic accounting will require you to integrate all your accounting, auditing, and investigating skills together to identify the nature of the fraud against the business. Naturally, the objective would be that who has done the fraud, what was the motive behind it. A forensic audit investigation would be more of the examination of the books of records of the company where you are auditing, and whether, it would be something like assessing the money trail, assessing the motive behind the fraud, and the attempts would be made by the auditor to derive the evidence which would be admissible for the litigation purposes. So that would be the principal differences between the forensic accounting and forensic investigation. Just to give you a very quick glimpse, okay, what are the audit work streams that we are looking at? So let's start with fraud preventions. So what are the opportunities, whether we can review the controls for early warning signals, because today everybody wants to know in advance what are the challenges and whether the company is likely to have any high level of risks or not. Consultation fraud risk assessment frameworks which are being aligned to the risk organization's risk profile. So banks, organizations all want to evaluate their internal processes to see that whether any of these processes and systems are subject to any fraud risks or not. Fraud detection, investigations and collecting the financial evidences, forensic data analysis, examining unstructured data in advance. So what has happened today is there's so much of data which is available within the organization. An opportunity arises that, one could also analyze a lot of unstructured data and discover whether there are any fraud trends or not. Computer forensics is another area of upcoming practice where forensic auditors could assist in data recoveries or analyzing data of digital devices. Of course, these kind of audits do require some specific nature of skill sets, but as forensic auditors, we could definitely learn those skill sets or partner for those skill sets. Providing expert testimony. So today what happens, a lot of law enforcement agencies, let's say the NCB, Narcotics Bureau, or let's say the EOW or somebody, they are doing an investigation and they want to file a charge sheet. But naturally, they may not be the right experts when it comes to doing a financial investigation. So a forensic auditor could be appointed, maybe not to give a report, but to be a back-end support to these agencies to assess the various money trail and to give them the necessary support for preparing and filing the charge sheets. This is one way. The other nature of services which are available in today's times. So what is an investigation and how do we get a good forensic audit done? What are the qualitative thought process approaches behind it? So one is an advanced risk-based audit techniques. We are all well aware that, what a risk-based audit consists of, and which is more of verifying the processes. And advanced risk-based auditing techniques is very similar to it. It's just that we are doing a further deep dive and trying to assess whether our checkpoints can be further elaborated to identify any possible frauds or crimes or not in that sense. Technology tools, we need to use the right technology tools. I mean, this has been discussed comprehensively in various seminars. Networking, on-ground surveillances. So in a forensic audit, what happens is that a lot of work happens off-site, a lot of work happens on-site, and a lot of work happens at third parties where we may probably not be auditing. But, we may probably want to go and try to assess whether the companies are there in existence or not. So it's essential that, we have a good networking available with us so that, instead of traveling, our network members could be available to go and verify things on the ground. And tie-ups with forensic laboratories. Sometimes in the forensics, you come across situations like whether the document which has been provided to you is a genuine document or not. Now, there can be a signature done. Now, we may not be an expert in assessing the signature, whether the signature, comparing two signatures which may look identical in nature, but to assess whether these signatures are genuinely done by that individual or not. In such situations, forensic auditors do tie up with forensic laboratories where we can go and present the documents to them, and they may, at a nominal charge, assess the signatures and give you an update whether those signatures appears to have been done by the concerned signatories or not. So these kind of tie-ups, networking, technology tools do go on to enhance the qualitative approach towards your forensic audit. Technology, yes, no forensic audit is complete without having the right technology in place. Not that we need to have all the technology tools available. A lot of times, the basic technology tools also do help you in doing a comprehensively a very good qualitative forensic audit. So I believe as a forensic auditor, one should reinvest your monthly or your half yearly or your yearly cash flows into some kind of a technology. The reason behind this is that, whenever we are going to a client to pitch for a forensic audit or an investigation audit, one of the first questions which comes up to us and everybody is that, what kind of technology tool are you using? This is very important from a forensic auditor's perspective if he's trying to look at mandates from such clients and agencies, and also it enhances the image of the forensic auditor also, that yes, they are in a position to do this audit. Also, considering that many of these forensic audits are time bound, technology will definitely go ahead and help in completing these audits on a time bound manner. Automation of tasks such as data extraction and conversion sampling tools. Some of these softwares which are available, they assist in data extractions and conversions. So, what happens today, let's say for an example, you're doing a bank forensic and you come across bank statements which have been provided by different bankers to you. Again, these statements could be in different formats. Some could be in PDF, some could be a scan copy, some could be just a pasted sheet on an Excel page. So naturally, when you're trying to assess the money trail, it becomes very difficult to try to map the fund flows, which is a very critical part of any forensic audit. So there are these softwares which at times are available, which convert these data into readable formats, and then subsequently the fund mapping happens. Auditing through visualizations like video call, Google GeoTracks, apps, and drones. The purpose of this is not to the purpose of this is to gather some evidence and some trails in advance. So for example, you're doing a Google a video call audit by way of a stock, but without going physically doing an audit of a stock, just doing on a video call may not be suffice, because you will not be able to assess the quality of the stock. But again, you get an idea that what is the nature and what is the type of stock which is available. So these only help you probably to an extent to give you some cues what needs to be done next. And I will come to Google GeoTracks in my next slide. And recording of audit works in online repositories. What happens in a forensic is that our audit and our audit evidence both moves together. So it's very critical that our documentations pack is completely available at any point of time, because whenever we are doing a forensic audit, there are different teams doing different works, and somebody may want to review any document during the forensic audit. It is essential that all our working papers especially are there in online repositories. Everybody is using a lot of them in today's times, so it would probably help everybody to complete the audit at a faster pace. Just to give you a little glimpse, this is a Google GeoTrack Earth Live, where we are able to just observe, a project which has been executed over different time frames. So let's say something which was done on 2nd June and then December and then November 2018. One can see that how this project has moved from, how the road construction has typically happened. This does not necessarily form a part of the evidence, if I can put it that way, but it does help you in getting a very bird's eye view that what kind of audit procedures that we should think of deploying and the strategies that we need to deploy while conducting an audit. Using social media predictive analysis. Today, social media throws up a lot of data on a day-to-day basis. We have all seen this. So, let's say we want to track the individual's current activities. We want to identify whether there are undisclosed related parties. Now, they may not be related, but they could at least be connected parties. Hypothetically, we are trying to find out any undisclosed major events which have happened, and of course, analyzing the trends and lifestyles. I think this is very important because, at times, when you're auditing in a company and you're trying to audit any kind of an employee level fraud, and you will also get a brief idea. For example, if you analyze the trends and lifestyle of the individual through the social media, all these platforms, digital platforms, are tools to provide you cues. It may not be the necessary evidence. So it does help you in providing some cues. some of the IT tools that are being used in the forensics. So iEquity, IDEA, I mean, these are all, some of these are very, tools which are used outside India in investigations. Not that we need to use these tools in our forensic audit on a day-to-day basis, but some of these data analytic tools could be used. So for example, IDEA is something which is being used. I'm told even iEquity is being used by Indian audit firms. They're just a matter of information for the audience out here. And some of the other sources, open sources of data, which are credible and reliable in nature for litigations, you know, the Honorable Supreme Court and Honorable High Court, Indian Qanun, e-Jurix, credit and compliance, credit rating data are comprehensively available, even including historical credit rating data, CIBIL information through the NSE websites on various corporate actions, on the media and internet, Google, OneSource, Zoba. Zoba is typically being used for identifying, you know, the nature of relationships of directors of the past, the nature of other connections in various other companies. Like Zoba, there are such other websites also, and regulatory databases like the SEBI, the CBI or the Investors Forums websites. A lot of data are available on the organization, and these databases could be available for use. These are open databases, so they could be available for use when we are doing any kind of an investigation. Controlling staff productivity, you know, a good question which nowadays comes up is that, can we do a forensic audit sitting at home? To my understanding, this is one of the most challenging tasks for any auditor, to audit, to do a normal audit from home. Now, when an expectation comes up that can we do a forensic audit from home, you know, it is imperative that the necessary evidences and documentations are available in place, and our staff, we are able to monitor the qualitative output of our staffs. Some of these tools are available for time management, project and task management. It also helps to understand how the daily staff, everybody is doing these tasks. Even if you do not have these tools, simple tools should be used by the organization, like Excel and all, on a day-to-day basis, to assess, you know, the level of productivity and the nature of work which is being done by the staff. At times we are too much dependent on staff, so it is highly imperative that the regular reporting is available from the staff on a day-to-day basis, so as to ensure that, you know, our project is moving in the right direction. So what is expected, you know, when we are going for a project? You know, what is the client looking at? Naturally, servicing any client is a complex process. There's a very reason behind it, that the client is expecting you to identify the nature of the fraud, who are the perpetrators of the fraud, and for you, a very stringent time frame has been given, you know, at times, which is at times not possible to complete and execute the same. However, you know, sometimes we do accept such challenges. It's imperative that, you know, whenever such challenges are accepted, one should ensure that at such points of time, the client is not let down. Because your first project is successful, it brings you the second, and the second brings you the third. That's my experience in this field of service. The client monitors you on a very regular basis. So what can be done? One is, of course, ensuring the highest level of quality of reporting. As we are all aware that the forensic audit has to test the time of law. So whenever the report is presented to the court of law, it should be in a manner which is readable, digestible, and all the necessary evidences are available. So the quality of audit report should be of such high nature that, you know, there should be no disputes in any languages also. You know, on a lighter side, whenever we go to doing a forensic audit, our investigating agency always tells us that your final proofreading of the report should be done by somebody who's a school-going child, who's able to understand and read your report. So I think the reporting drafting has to be very simple language, and it has to be to the point. As we all know, the forensic is a fact-finding report. Quick turnaround times. So naturally, if we are giving a time commitment, we should ensure that the report is completed within the specific time frame. And developing audit SOPs. Indian accounting firms, like all of us, are always having a challenge that our staff is never, at times, keeps on rotating. and moving on from one project to the another, or a new staff keeps on coming on the project. I think in a forensic audit, there are many tasks which are repetitive in nature, and there would be some tasks which could be little bit relatively new and different from your normal audit. So it would be good to develop your own internal audit SOPs. These audit SOPs could help the organization to ensure that there's a smooth transition in the forensic audit, and there's a complete standardization available when the forensic audit is being conducted. I call the achieving the purpose, I call the 5S theory: a strategy, system, statute, standards, and staff and skills. So to meet our objectives. So what is forensic audit? It's a strategy-based audit. It's a business audit where we try to keep on assessing what could be the nature of the fraud. You may be having all the types of documents available in front of you. But again, this is not a compliance audit. This is an audit to understand whether any wrongdoing has happened or not, or any questionable business practices have been happening or not. So one has to ensure that the strategy has to be very well defined. It should not be communicated to the client. It should be very well within your team, and that too not to everybody in your team, so that your strategies are not spelled out. Systems, it's about the nature of the systems that we are working upon, both at our end and at the client's end. Once we are able to understand the systems which the clients are using, we would be in a better position to know what kind of technology tools we should be using in these kind of projects, in that project. Statute, if the company is regulated, it would be relevant to understand the statute. Standards, forensic accounting and investigation standards. These have been notified. These have been brought out by the ICI, but they are yet to be notified. So as and when they are notified, these should be a part of your forensic audit. However, until your standards don't come, the question which comes up to everybody of us is that, what is the, the security for the auditor here? Because, in a forensic audit, the auditor may do a work with his understanding of the matter. But again, there could be so many elements of subjectivity involved in a matter of a fraud. So it's important that, in the absence of standard, the necessary notes, the disclaimers are brought out into your audit report. And also at the start of the audit, an engagement letter is entered into with the client, telling the client that, there is no forensic standards as of date. However, my understanding of the forensic audit is so and so and so. And there is a possibility that in case somebody else does an audit, the other person could find out findings which I may not be in a position to have found out. So I believe that, this is a very important part, because to save yourself from future litigations, your necessary disclaimers, engagement letters do help you a lot. Staff and skills, to assess on every forensic audit, we need not have the same staff and skills. We should keep on trying to bring in new thoughts and processes, because it's important that, people can bring in new ideas in a forensic audit. So my personal view is that, staff and skills, even if they change, there's nothing wrong in that. And we should try to ensure that good people are available and keep on identifying good people through networkings or, own internal staffs. Standard process flow of a forensic audit. Step 1, initialization, that is discussing with the appointing agencies what your scope of work is. Be very, very clear what your scope and what your expectations from your appointing agency is. At times the appointing agency may expect, when we get the appointment letter, a lot of things are expected from a forensic auditor, which is not possible for a forensic auditor to do. In fact, at times the appointment letter says that the forensic auditor would be responsible for all losses, liabilities, and other things. I mean, it's absurd, but sometimes some of these appointing letters come with such clauses. So hence, at the time of appointment itself, these thought processes should be brought out on the table with the appointing agency before acceptance of the assignment, and enter into an engagement letter. This helps a lot, because when an audit goes into an investigation by any third party, we are in a position to say, see, this is what our understanding of the project was, and we have already informed our appointing agency. And develop a strategy. This strategy can be developed through interviews of the client whom you are auditing, getting preliminary leads, like we said, through all the online digital platforms and other data which are available in the public domain, and then various other external data which are being available. So once we collate a lot of these data, we understand the company, we are in a position to develop a better strategy around the specific forensic audit. Perform analysis, to summarize your homogeneous data. So again, data has to be consolidated into a single place. So ensure that all your data is brought out into a single place. Make sure that the data which you are getting is from a very genuine source. So the genuinity of the data can never be questioned in the future. Use of AI models for data analytics. Of course, this could be done in the future, but again, data analytics plays a critical part in the forensic audit. Perform the various tasks such as asset tracing, utilizations of disbursed funds, etc. Prepare charts and graphics providing outliers. So sometimes, when we are doing forensic audit, if we have a view, graphical or a chart view of the transaction, it gives us a more better idea, what is the nature of the transaction which has happened. So I believe these outliers help you in, getting more cues about the transactions. Obtain relevant evidences. So identify a specific type of fraud which has been committed, how the same has been committed. These evidences could be gathered through the nature of the transactions, your emails, etc. Gather evidences depending upon the nature of the case. It could be locating the documents, economic information, proof of occurrence of an event. And of course, the most important is that who has been the beneficiary. End of the day, there has to be a beneficiary when we are identifying a fraud. A forensic audit, again, is a fact-based reporting. Our report should cover the approach, the limitations, the methodology which has been followed for conducting the forensic audit. A detailed finding should be available, and all the evidences, whichever are part of the findings, should be attached with the report. Why I would say this is that in a normal course, we would not attach all the evidences. But let's say after 5 years or 7 years, your forensic audit goes to the court of law. At that point of time, trying to find out and going back to your working papers may be a slight challenge for anybody here. So it would be a good system to ensure that all the evidences which are very relevant are part of your forensic audit report itself. So nobody has to search for it at a later date. And court proceedings, to my understandings, there is no time frame for retention of records in a forensic audit. And I will give you a very classical example, what happened to a friend of mine. In the year 2004 or 5, he had done a bank concurrent audit of a public sector bank. There was a fraud which happened in the branch, and our professional brother had gone and given the report to the investigating agency. It was 2004 or 5 then. In the year 2019, he gets a call from he gets a notice to come and present himself in the court of law. Now, if one can imagine after 14 years or 15 years, if some notice comes, one would naturally not be in a position or be prepared in any manner to be, to go to the court of law. However, since the reports were already filed correctly at those days, he was in a position to confirm to the court that yes, these were his reports. That was a signature which was done by him, and and his reportings he could identify. Cross-examination in a forensic audit, it's always a two-way traffic. It is never a one-way traffic. In a sense that we do a finding, we do tend to take a management response. Now, let's say a situation where your banker or your appointing agency tells you that no, you don't need to take the management response. We will go and take it from the concerned party ourselves directly. There is not an issue in that. However, there could be a situation that when your report goes to that, your observations go to that party, he may come and contest your observations. So it is essential that ideally one should try to convince your client that no, it would be advisable that to avoid any future litigations, that the concerned party, the management, has been given an opportunity to be heard. Again, cross-examination where a report is not presented, you could be cross-examined by the lawyers of the opposite side. And visits to law enforcement agencies, I think one needs to ensure that when a fraud has been identified, there are certain once the fraud has been identified and reported to the investigating agencies, from there on, the law enforcement agencies do call you to their offices and seek a lot of clarities and information from your end. So whenever one is trying to budget any pricings, one should try to ensure that some kind of a buffer is available, that They are available when you have to go and travel to these agencies and give your statements. So what are the opportunities? There are various opportunities, and my way of looking at things is that I will always try to look within the existing clients which are available with everybody. The reason behind is that we could speak about empanelments, we could speak about doing an FAFD course or a CFE course, and will that be suffice for us to get a forensic project? In my view, that may not be sufficient to get any forensic audit, and hence one will have to look at your existing opportunities with your current clients. So let's say hypothetically you are doing an internal audit, and within your internal audit it could be a standard process review. One could always go and tell the client that let me do one thing. In one of these areas of internal audit, I suspect that there could be a fraud. Let us do an investigation of only that specific area of audit. This helps in building in lot of empanelment, a lot of experiences. And I think that provides you the opportunities when you're going for empanelment that, listen, I have already done this in the past, some kind of a forensic investigation. Also try to have an expanded forensic service portfolio. And I will come to that, what kind of services could be available other than the normal bank-based forensics, which are being done by many people. Empanelments, yes, there are these empanelments with the IBA. There are these empanelments with the SEBI and the other regulators who keep on approaching chartered accountant firms for getting empaneled. Many of these empanelments have some stringent clauses like, some years of experiences or some specific size of the team or the office or number of years of services. But let me put one suggestion to you here, that we do a lot of bank audits. Many of us have done a lot of bank concurrent audits, and when we go through the checklist of the bank, there will be some area of audit where the checklist would expect you to identify whether any fraud has taken place or any wrongdoing has happened or not. Try to use that knowledge and that experience also as a part of your experience, because knowingly, unknowingly, you may have done some areas of work which you may not have brought it out into your experience certifications. Creating portfolio of services is just an illustrative list. So let's say fraud investigations. Financial frauds is one area of investigations which everybody is well aware of, and which could be one of the service lines. Forensic imaging and analysis of servers, laptops, and mobiles. In today's times, we are well aware that a lot of our data is across various places. So it could be your mobile, it could be the tablets, it could be your desktops. Now, again, for a forensic auditor to analyze each and every data, because it may not be possible that all the data has been brought at one place, and it could be lying in these standalone equipments. So one will have to go and analyze those data. Now, what happens that, even if you get a laptop from your client to be analyzed, it is highly likely that that individual may have deleted the data. So naturally, we will have to go remove the hard disk, and try to extract the deleted data. So forensic imaging and analysis of data is one area of upcoming services. Money laundering, PMLA Act is applicable, and money laundering is another area of service where one could assist your clients in identifying whether any money laundering activities are taking place in his business or not. Early warning signals and whistleblower, employee trading guidelines. We audit various stockbrokers, depository participants, and many other intermediaries in the capital markets. Most of them, or almost all of them, have a very rigid employee trading guidelines. And these guidelines are highly important from a governance perspective, as well as a reputational risk, which is always lying to the organization. Wherever we have such capital market intermediaries, I believe that this one area should be deeply scrutinized, and it should just not be a routine audit which should be done that हमने DP statement ले लिया, हमने उसका transaction statement देख लिया, that may not be suffice. One will probably have to call for the relatives. One will probably relatives का statement. One should probably go and try to see what is the lifestyle that the person is living. So a lot of things could come out when you are auditing employee trading guidelines. Governance, corporate governance is a high area of opportunity for chartered accountants here, because naturally today the boards are very susceptible and worried. I hope there is no fraud which is taking place. So whenever you are going to the board meeting, the director is expecting you to certify a lot of things in today's times. Hence, the area corporate governance could be an important area of audit. Again, there is a viewpoint that in the future auditors will look at audit just not from a compliance perspective or a transaction perspective. He will try to look at from what is necessary in public good. So again, governance is very critical, and to assess any market practices. So let's say even hypothetically, you are having a creditor in your company, and there are various creditors, but to one creditor you keep on paying his dues in advance or on a timely basis, and baki creditors ko we do not pay on a timely basis. So that could be some kind of a preferential treatment. Now probably you will always try to go and assess whether this is the right governance practices or not to be followed by the company, and there could be something behind which we could later on come to know. Implementing hotline to enable whistleblowing. So a lot of frauds, it is well known that happens within the organization, and the employees are probably one of the first few people who are aware that some wrongdoing is happening. So, but at times employees are shy or worried that they may not be in a position to go and talk to their seniors about this kind of wrongdoing happening. There could be an opportunity here that we as chartered accountants could be the necessary hotline between the company and the employees, that listen, whenever anything wrong happens, you can just go to this independent agency who may probably help listen to you and do the necessary checks at a later date subsequently. Fraud risk assessment. So today the expectation is that we should be able to find out the frauds in advance, and it should not be something after the fraud has happened. So a lot of vulnerability testing is advisable to be done. So let's say in an example, you are doing a bank concurrent audit and you are auditing the KYCs of the client, of the banker, so of the borrowers hypothetically, or the depositors. Now you would like to know, the banker would like to know that the process which is being followed, whether any of those processes is subject to any fraud risks or not. That's the kind of a proactive fraud vulnerability assessment that an auditor can go and tell the client that yes, I can give you this as an additional service. And this is one of the new service lines which is picking up very fast. Devising anti-fraud policies and of course training, pre-investment due diligences. A lot of investors nowadays, even in startups when investments are happening, they want to have a reasonably good level of assurance that yes, there is no wrongdoing in the business. So some kind of a pre-investment due diligence, it may not be an investigation at that point of time, but your client will definitely expect you to go deep dive into the various data which are available before the investments are made. Data privacy and anti-corruptions. So code of ethics is one area where boards could expect the auditors to audit. GDPR compliances, these are all data privacy guidelines. So one would like to see that whether any violations of these data privacy or guidelines are happening, whether credit card data are being misused, whether individual data are being misused, because again these are reputational losses to the organization. And of course cyber security, which is the next level of opportunities for the honorable members out here, because I believe this will be the next level with so much of things going online, and cybersecurity could be the next area of services that one could look at. Emerging areas of investigations. So, एक question है कि GST audit तो चले गया. So now what do we do? But does that take away the risk of fraud in a company? No, it does not. There can still be a GST fraud. So that could be a fraud from a third-party vendor, or that could be a bogus sale, or that could be something, an incorrect or fraudulent ITC being taken. So naturally, SME businesses and boards at a later date, some inquiry comes from the department, and that this was a bogus party that you dealt with. At the very start of the transaction, only at the point of empanelment, a proper investigation could be done that these parties with whom we are dealing have a good background and standing. This is just one of the examples, but being a GST compliant business, in my view, would be the next level of big opportunities to chartered accountant firms here. RERA, yes, end use and project certifications. We do provide certifications under the MahaRERA, but sometimes, it is expected that, whether really these certifications are genuine in nature, or whether these end use of funds really is he doing for the purpose of the business. For example, if he's making payment to the contractor, is the contractor actually doing that kind of work or not, or is it just an expenditure which is booked in the accounts? So one should try to convince your clients that, yes, see, there are some fraud risk in these areas of works also. Fraud risk assessment at BFSI, fintech, like we just discussed that, insider trading and unfair market practices, capital market intermediaries. I mean, one could look at, doing such audits at capital market, various intermediaries, tax investigations. So, recently the tax department at some places did appoint chartered accountant firms to help them, do a lot of analysis of various data which have been identified or taken during the raid. So let's say there are mobiles, there are email data, so many form of data. So they appoint chartered accountant firms to help them, review this, to convert this data, to review this data, and give the necessary support to the agencies. This is one area of upcoming practice. Special audits by the Income Tax Act, of course. Pre-employment screening. Many multinational companies ensure that, before any employee is onboarded, there's a proper employment screening happen. Now that everybody is working offline, and employees are actually virtual in nature, if I can put it. Pre-employment screening is one area of service where one could go and do a lot of investigation, whether that employees, the background check of the employee could be done. Outsourced service processes like supply chain, other service providers. What happens that, many companies are worried that, there are a lot of counterfeit goods which are there, and there could be a lot of people in the market who could be, violating their IPR rights. So there are opportunities where chartered accountant firms are appointed to go and, find out who are the people on the ground who are trying to or manufacturing such items, and necessary actions can then be taken. So a lot of supply chain and others, the other service providers are investigated by the company to ensure that their brand remains intact. Even the supply chain, there is a lot of frauds which are possible in the supply chain. So let's say there's a transport of goods happening. So in the transport of goods, really whether the goods were properly, dispatched, loaded, unloaded, so many things could be there where there could be some kind of a fraud risk. So one has to ensure that there's an opportunity that within the supply chain also there are some areas of opportunities which are arising. ASM services, it's a nature of transaction audit. That recently there was a circular by the where banks had to do appoint an ASM for auditing, doing a transaction audit on a day-to-day basis for all for all borrowers above 250 crores of lending by the public sector banks. Of course, in my understanding, the AAA rated companies have been excluded from this. So this is a panel by the Indian Bank Association, and some chartered accountants are already empaneled on this, along with other members from other professions also who are doing this on a day-to-day basis. FEMA, money laundering, round tripping of funds, we are doing an audit in a bank and we are auditing trade finance activities. We could definitely tell the banker that, look, you find out an issue. You could always tell the banker, see, I have found out an issue. Now let me try to see if I should do an investigation or not, or if you would like to do an investigation or not. I will be glad to help you out here. Decoding Ind AS financial statements for investors, credit rating, regulators, agencies, etc. At times, many of these rating agencies or regulators or agencies do not have fair understanding, and naturally, we do not expect them also to do an understanding from the financial statements. Whether by a good reading of the financial statements, whether there could be any kind of a fraud risk or not, or whether there are any, let's say, expected credit loss calculations, whether these calculations are correctly done or not under Ind AS. So these could be the areas of investigations which an auditor could do upon. Due diligence of startups, which discuss emerging technology risks. So cyber security, online payments, data integrity है कि नहीं है. Evaluating effectiveness of automated controls. Example, Internet over Things, IoTs. That's the next future. Of course, it is still this IoT is still developing as an opportunity. Anti-bribery, IPR violations we discuss, and of course the last, which is very important, is support to legal firms, resolution professionals, and liquidators for asset search, forensic accounting, preparations of accounts, restating of accounts, of various financial periods. So one could definitely assist a lot of these agencies. It's a well-known fact that a lot of work goes to legal firms, and it would be a wise thing to tie up with a legal firm that, whenever any opportunity comes up, you would always be available to them to support them in any kind of an investigation, because naturally the legal firm themselves would not be doing an investigation. They will be appointing some kind of an auditor. And a lot of boards also try to first go to a legal firm, though they do come to chartered accounting firms, but they also go to legal firms for doing investigations. Capacity building. So, how do we develop a forensic audit practice? I mean, we cannot just look at things that, I've done an FAFD course, there's an empanelment with IBA, but will that suffice? According to me, no, it will not suffice, because the number of people who are there on the panel are very few in nature. But my view would be that one has to look at more globally and more with a very open mind. Yes, there is more broader opportunities lying both within India and outside India. With the advent of technology now available in place, one is also able to do a lot of analytics, fraud analytics, sitting in India of the companies and clients which are based outside India. Networking guidelines, empowering Indian accounting firms. Of course, the ICAI has done a very nice thing by bringing in the networking guidelines, the revised networking guidelines. They were there in the past, but they keep on getting revised, and under these current guidelines, there is an opportunity to work together. The multidisciplinary firms, MDP, has been very recently announced, but of course, this will all depend upon how these guidelines and rules are framed and how they move forward. Mentoring and fellowship. So, in my views, this profession always has been available for a lot of young members. So whenever young members want to develop any, forensic practice, or they want to develop an investigation practice, I would always urge them to go and outreach your fellow member. They are always available to guide you and help you out in that sense. And promoting youngsters, it is not possible for us to do everything, and hence we should try to give maximum promotion to youngsters who are very good in technology, especially. It would help in completing the task also at a faster pace. And a lot of these youngsters, use good thought processes, whenever they are doing work or using various technology tools. So my suggestion is, of course, that we should all work together to the maximum possible. That will help you to get you the necessary projects, in my views. Thank you all from myself. I think that was a little quick, but the best I could do in 1 hour. So I'll be happy to take some questions from everybody, and I'll try to devote maximum time to questions, because there are normally a lot of questions. So like hear out from you guys and be happy to answer.
One second. Hardik sir, 1 minute. Hardik sir, if you can give 1 or 2 example of your own work in forensic, where you have, तो आपको अच्छा लगेगा किस तरह का आपका एक्सपीरियंस रहा फोरेंसिक केस रिजॉल्व करने में.
Okay. So I will not take any names, but we are trying to investigate one company which where we had to analyze a lot of bank statements. And normally क्या होता है bank when we are supporting and investigating agencies, they do a lot of fund mapping. This is one very good opportunities for the chartered accountants also. because investigating agencies are not in a position to do a mapping of funds. Now, whenever we are doing mapping of funds, there are different challenges which comes in front of us. One of them is that, like what kind of a method we should try to use when we are trying to see whether the fund has been used for a specific purpose or not. So normally we try to use a first in, first out method. So let's say the money has come into the bank account, and whatever money has gone out to another bank account or for any other purpose, it is assumed that the money which has come in first will be used, would have been used for the purpose for which the money has been transferred. That is one thing, I would like to share, because there is always a lot of ambiguity and, concern around this, because at times there are common pool accounts through which a lot of transactions keep on happening. Over the recent times, with the augment of payment wallets also coming in, there are a lot of small transactions, and, payment wallet transactions are very difficult to identify. कि ये किसके purpose के लिए है. Normally we would skip these transactions because they may probably not, they would skip the threshold level. But let's say we are doing an investigation in a drug case matter where these small payments, in fact, are more important than the large payments. So the transactions through payment wallets are very difficult to identify. And, at times we need to take support from agencies such as the NPCI to get the necessary information from them. The next thing, which is, an upcoming challenge before everybody of us, is blockchain transactions. They call it digital hawala. In some of these investigating agencies call it so. So blockchain transactions are very challenging to identify, to understand what was the source and who is the beneficiary of those funds. So this is a new area of opportunities which comes up, and the challenges also which comes up when we are doing an investigations into cases like the drug case matter. I would like to give some examples. In a forensic audit, what happens? There's a lot of risks which are involved to an individual. So I would not want to share my experience, but I'll share the experience of one of my professional colleagues. That they were investigating a specific case, and during the case, they were actually being told by the client that listen, if you report it in this manner, we will take you to the court of law. This is indirectly trying to threaten the auditor that we will take you to the court of law if you keep on repeating or reporting unnecessarily against us. And hence, whenever we should be well aware that these issues and challenges will always come up in front of us. Now, there is a way to handle these challenges and issues, and hence it is important that, in my views, one should try to have within your own organization two different teams, one which is dealing with your client and one which is executing on the ground. Because what happens, the one who is executing it, let him execute and let him be free from all these discussions, and one who is talking to the client should be as separate as possible, so that what happens that nobody is able to bypass that person and go and discuss with the execution team. And some kind of one needs to be very strong when we are discussing with the client whom we are auditing. One has to be very careful in selection of the words, and to an extent possible, one should try to have limited discussions to the extent it is required only, in my personal views. Some forensic auditors do face a lot of challenges, when they are auditing. One of the other challenges which the forensic auditors faces is a classification of fraud. The IBA, whenever we are doing this bank-based forensic audits, the IBA has recently come out with a circular that the forensic auditor should give a conclusive report. That is, he should write in the report whether a fraud has happened or a fraud has not happened. Now, this is very difficult for any forensic auditor, because the task of a forensic audit is a fact-finding report. And to decide whether a fraud has happened or not happened could be the matter of an investigation, or it could be a matter which the honorable courts could always decide. So whenever we are trying to say that a fraud has happened, or any kind of an indication that we are giving a fraud has happened or not happened, one has to be very sure what we are saying, and the audit report should be well supported with all the necessary evidences, because we do come across these situations. Right now the challenge in front of all of us is that there is no forensic standards. So when your report is presented to the board, the bank's board, so one banker says that this is a fraud, the other banker says that this is not a fraud. So it becomes challenging for the auditor also at times to come to a thought, a common ground that whether this transaction should be a fraud or not a fraud. So hence it's important that, your engagement letters and everything are well spelled out, that, even if I classify an account as a fraud, that does not mean that the appointing agency, that the investigating agency or the court of law will consider the transaction as fraud. So my personal experience has been that, one should always ensure at the point of the entering into any kind of an appointment, a very good engagement letter has been obtained and kept on record. This is something which I will advise to everybody here, because it helps out at a later date a lot, including clauses like, how to exit a project, because, you may take up a project, but a project, we do come across situations that, project to aa chuka hai, and we are executing the project and the client is not providing the data. Now you want to execute the project also, you want to exit the project, and the banker may tell you, no, you can't exit the project. It is only that I can tell you to exit, or you hand over, or you give me a report, based on the data which is available. Now, naturally, you are not in a position to give a conclusive view, because you may not be having all the data in front of you. So necessary clauses of exit also should be available, and under what situations you may warrant an exit. Those all things should be well spelled out while conducting a forensic audit at the time of acceptance of appointments.
Sir, एक question ये है, what is the difference between transaction audit and forensic audit? Both are the same thing? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, sir. I heard your case. So I think a forensic audit is a transaction audit in my views, and there is no difference between a transaction audit and a forensic audit. We are trying to analyze a specific transaction, and we are trying to give a comment on it, whether this transaction was fraudulent in nature or not a fraudulent nature. So in my views, a transaction audit is a forensic audit. Okay. It's a forensic audit.
And then one CA colleague of ours, Kunal Narwadkar, he is asking that he has recently completed this FAFD course. He would like to understand what digital tools you feel are particularly relevant in initial period of forensic accounting practice.
What digital
tools?
Okay. See, at the initial stage, naturally, we are all concerned about, project आएगा कि नहीं आएगा future में, कितना हमें invest करना चाहिए और reinvest करना चाहिए technology tools में. In my office also, we do not invest very heavily into all the technology tools, because technology also keeps on changing on a regular basis. But it will be good to invest in an analytic tool, especially because, at times when the transactions are large in number, Excel may probably have some limitations. So investing in one technology tool, an analytic tool could be suffice, and it may not cost very much also, in my views. Later on, during a forensic audit, if you feel that some further technology tools should be available, there are various technology tools available in the market where you could take it only for that specific project and use the services of those software providers.
Okay. हार्दिक जी, एक चीज बताइए कि पर्टिकुलरली रेरा में वो फंड यूटिलाइजेशन का बहुत ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, and under RERA, for right use of fund issued to the contractor, is there any assignment you have come across कि भाई कोई RERA की body ने auditor को appoint किया है in case of dispute and all to trail the fund utilization?
So अभी तक RERA के कोई body ने appoint किया कि नहीं, I have not come across such case. लेकिन investors ने appoint जरूर किया हुआ है.
अच्छा, इन्वेस्टर, हाँ, बिल्डर तो आपको अपॉइंट करने से रहा.
सॉरी,
बिल्डर खुद तो अपने को अपॉइंट करने से रहा कोई फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट के लिए.
नहीं, बिल्डर थोड़ी अपॉइंट करेगा.
हाँ, वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ. तो इन्वेस्टर है कि भाई एज पर रेरा जैसे वो एलोकेशन है ना, 70% हैज टू गो टू दैट प्रोजेक्ट फंड एंड ऑल. तो उसमें देयर इज ए चांसेस ऑफ मिस यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ मनी रिसीव्ड. तो whether there can be a case for forensic audit.
Yeah. So at times also, I'll put it the other way. The other opportunity is, there's a joint venture project happening, between a builder and a landowner. At that point of time also, a foreign an audit could be on a continuous basis, with an investigating mindset to ensure that the project mein jo bhi expenses ho rahi hai, it is meeting the purposes of the project. So a proper cash flow monitoring, or ongoing monitoring could be a part of the objective of the development of the asset.
Okay. And another question which comes to my mind, one youngster CA wanted to have, say, develop his forensic practice. What could be the good way to start, this kind of practice area? मतलब forensic में practice अगर start करना है, what would be your advice to youngster? How they should move ahead?
Okay. So 2003 when I entered my practice, sir, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि you enter and you get an opportunity immediately. Nobody is going to come to you directly. You have to go and knock the doors. So you keep on knocking as many number of doors which are possible. That listen, I want to work with you. So I would knock the doors of my professional colleagues and showcase that this is what experience I have. I would probably go and knock the doors of the banker or my clients. That this is the kind of course when I'm new I don't have any clients, but I will probably go and knock the doors of any other potential clients from time to time. एक मौका तो कोई देगा ना sir. I mean, end of the day somebody has to give a good opportunity to somebody based on the experience. But a lot of them, what they are doing right now, I've seen some youngsters that they are working with established forensic firms that we want to work with you. This is our team, because what happens again in a forensic audit, teams keep on changing. And like I said that if we build in our own audit SOPs in place, because a lot of activities are already standardized. Many of these activities are standardized. So if our audit SOPs are there in place, we could network and work with various agencies and teams. So my view would be that they should outreach as many number of seniors and fellow members as possible.
Okay.
Soliciting work with bankers and new clients, sir, it's not a misconduct. But if you are going and trying to represent your services, I mean, of course, I'm not saying that you can go and write an email that this is the kind of the work I'm doing, and you give me work. I'm not saying that kind of soliciting. But if you're meeting somebody and saying that this is the kind of service which I'm offering, I don't think anything is wrong in that, in my personal views.
Mr. Amok Gore has written earlier, PSU bank fraud led to forensic audit. Then NBFC were on the जैसे ILFS हुआ, Sari Infra हुआ. Next could be, he's saying next could be fintech companies and their platforms. Are there there is an opportunity coming in front of us, coming way to us कि भाई to जैसे पहले बैंक में फ्रॉड होते थे, फिर NBFC में आए. Next could be fintech companies. Amok Gore is suggesting like that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there could be a possibility. So yes, there's an opportunity to work with fintech companies. Like loan against inadequate collaterals have been informed. So that could be a possibility.
And Hardik sir, एक चीज और बताइए कि suppose as a youngster recently passed out, I have done this FAFD course and I want to build up my career in forensic audit or investigation, whatever you say. What are the other courses you recommend कि भाई ये 2-3 चीजें आपको करनी चाहिए so that you get foothold of this kind of investigation? कोई FAFD छोड़ के और कुछ courses?
Some people do CFE. Some people do CFE, Certified Fraud Examiner courses. I mean, I have done DISA. I have not done any FAFD or CFE, but of course, but CFE is one course that a lot of people are doing. Okay.
And CFE generally it is governed by, it is based out of which country?
It's an international course. I will not have much details right now to provide on that. But
okay, no issue.
But CFE, Certified Fraud Examiner, is a good course, a good certification. I mean, it's a recognized course. like FAFD, and outside India, CFE is generally well recognized.
And Hardik sir, potential areas where opportunities of forensic investigation may open up, if you can list कि भाई जैसे बैंक का तो ठीक है, ये तो ऑलरेडी हो रहा है, वहाँ फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट भी होता है. इवन जहाँ मैं देख रखा हूँ कि where there is a NPA account and generally large corporate account, say 50 crore, 100 crore का, 200 crore का borrowing है, वहाँ तो मैं देख ही रहा हूँ कि वो लोग forensic audit appoint कर ही रहे हैं. Apart from that, what could be the new areas where opportunities of forensic investigation may come up for our professional brothers?
So, एक चीज है कि, in an investigation, let's say when we are working with a investigating agency, they are, when they come to an organization, they may appoint an organization, but, they are very clear that, whoever we are appointing, then the people whom we are appointing has to be the same team. So, working with SFIO or working with the CBI or working with the Narcotics Bureau, these agencies, they normally do not prefer to have a change of teams. So
okay.
this is one area of opportunity that, if they find that you have the experience or the knowledge, in fact, recently SFIO has appointed quite a few firms across India, and or empaneled quite a few firms across India, and they have done those empanelments basis the type of the team members, and they actually interviewed those people that whether you will be in a position to come and audit. So somebody who's good and his experience can always be part of such opportunities. In my view, GST is another area, whether a company is GST compliant or not, because we have seen that a lot of cases go into investigations by the GST department itself at a later date. So
yes.
I think GST, bhale GST audit nikal gaya, one can understand that, but I think a GST compliant business is, I believe, one of the very key important opportunities for any company. I mean, it may not be just a forensic, it may be even a normal business, but with a little investigative mindset, it would still help out.
Mr. Amok Gore has asked whether CISA or DISA course helps in forensic investigation.
I mean, I have done DISA. It has helped me. Okay. I do not see any much difference CISA and DISA ke bich mein. I think DISA is good enough in my views. I mean, if you are just doing from a forensic perspective, DISA is also good enough at this stage.
And CA Vishal Maske has written that for the members in the service or in the industry other than practitioner, which opportunities you foresee? He has given also example like post of chief internal auditor of any company. He could be a good, his quality should be a good forensic expertise.
This is a very good question by the individual that, other than the practitioner, what are the opportunities for members in the industry, one would look at. So naturally within the company also, there is a chief risk officer who is now, or who is appointed, at times the objective is to, or the internal auditor who is expected to, look at things very deeply, in that sense. And, boards are naturally expecting that, the concerned internal auditor, risk auditor, or is, looking at things with a very, with a different eye, end of the day. So definitely that chief internal auditor is a good suggestion which has been given by Vishal.
Yeah, Vishal Maske sir ne diya hai.
I think it's a very good suggestion which he has given, that yes, that's an opportunity. Other opportunity, of course, is that, I don't know if many people, but there are now chartered accountants who are being appointed by these investigating agencies as consultants. So, that's an opportunity which I see at times, as and when such opportunity comes up. So I think that there is a lot of ample opportunities both in the industry side and the practitioner side, in my views.
Then two more questions. Let me, since time is available. What type of other professional help do you require? Like, कोई आपको जरूरत पड़ी कि भाई ethical hacker का help लेवे, या क्राइम इंटेलिजेंस का हेल्प लेवे टू गेट योर फॉरेंसिक इन्वेस्टिगेशन असाइनमेंट कंप्लीट. किस तरह के अदर प्रोफेशनल बॉडीज से आपने कभी हेल्प लिया है या जरूरत पड़ सकती है या जरूरत पड़ती है?
सी आई थिंक एक चीज हमें याद रखनी चाहिए कि हमें जो मैंडेट दिया है ना, इट्स one has to try to ensure that we do not overspill the mandate at times, because there are data privacy issues also, so sometimes we should not try to do some things which we are not permitted to do. But coming to the point that the opportunities could be that जरूरत पड़ी है, हमें जरूरत पड़ी है फॉरेंसिक लेबोरेटरीज की जहाँ पे हमने सिग्नेचर असेसमेंट्स करवाए थे डॉक्यूमेंट्स के. हमें जरूरत पड़ी है कोई स्पेसिफिक इंजीनियर्स की जहाँ पे हमें कंप्यूटर हार्ड डिस्क का डेटा को एनालाइज करनी थी, उसको डेटा को एक्सट्रैक्ट करनी थी, पुराना डेटा को whether it has been deleted or not. So हमको ऐसे प्रोफेशनल्स की जरूरत पड़ी है ड्यूरिंग द फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट. एथिकल हैकर मेरे को आज तक मैंने कभी किया, probably it has never come to my mind also whether I would require ethical hacker in my forensic this. But cyber securities की आजकल जरूरत बहुत पड़ रही है. That is one area of expertise one could look at. Crime intelligence, I've not come across. Maybe I'm not doing that kind of work, so probably.
Then that's fair enough. Now requesting members, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hands, or you can put in chat box, so that Hardik San can reply to the best of his ability. I think there is no more question left. Hardik Chokshi ji, big thanks from my side.
I think a question आया हुआ है. Have you come across a situation where agencies have maintained any panel of forensic auditor, or whether these agencies insist that there must be at least 1 or 2 partners of forensic audit firm should possess technical skills? Okay. See, ऐसी कोई स्पेसिफिक पैनल नहीं है जहाँ पे I have come across, but recently SFIO का एक पैनल आया था, and उसमें कुछ requirements थी कि when they are appointing when they are empaneling a forensic audit firm. So SFIO has one. Narcotics Bureau does not have any panel, but they do take people who are from these government. I don't have the right information right now, but I can send it to you, Amog, that they do appoint people from the, from some government panel of auditors. So they do appoint from there, and EOW make sometimes the empanelments come in where they do ask about your past experiences of working with the investigating agencies. Even CBI asks your past experience of working with the investigating agencies. So I think they do look at the size of the firm, because from their point of view, they also need some. They believe that they need some firm who has some experiences in doing investigations. There is no time for teaching on the ground for them also. For them, they need somebody who aake fatafat karke nikal jaye. And they in fact prefer to have the same individual who has understanding and knowledge, and they don't prefer to have a change in the teams. So I think that is very important. कि अगर कोई project मिलता है, the individual should remain static on the ground. He may have to work at the investigating agency's office itself.
Now one question from Jaikishan Motwani sir. If handwriting analysis is required to be done more often, can we do graphology to do handwriting or signature analysis on our own? Okay. I don't know graphology. I don't have much idea. If you can.
So, sir, in my views, we should avoid doing these procedures, because what happens, our procedures, whatever we do, are subject to the review by the courts, by the lawyers, etc. So we should do, I feel that what we are best at. Where we are not best at, in my personal view, we should try to take an independent expert's view and present it to our appointing agency.
Sir, one more question from CA Sanjay Pathak sir. What he's trying to ascertain कि भाई ये जो रिसेंटली हाई प्रोफाइल ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग केस हुआ, आपने शायद एक बार आपके प्रेजेंटेशन में वो नाम भी लिया. What kind of forensic investigation is required to come into some kind of conclusion in this drug trafficking case? So, how a forensic investigation can help you out?
See, investigating agencies, require different kinds of supports. They require support from agencies who are good at financial analytics. They require support of agencies who are good at technology, driven technology data analysis through various technology tools. So, for example, somebody could be good at analyzing a lot of WhatsApp data, a lot of chats from the WhatsApps, and trying to come to a view. Somebody could be good at doing fund mapping. So, some of the question which the gentleman has put, in my views, drug trafficking cases and all may, chartered accountants could be best good for doing these kind of activities.
money trail to cross check हो ही सकता है.
Money trail cross again. इसमें drug cases में क्या होता है sir? That the challenge is that here the transaction levels are very small in nature. In money in drug cases, in a normal bank forensic, probably the transaction values are reasonably of very high nature. I think that is the one principal differences at times one may think of. So trying to assess small transactions and and doing the mapping does become a challenge. And again, there are a lot of payment wallets. So sometimes the bank statements may be we may not be able to find out who is the direct beneficiary when the money has been transferred. So we may need some data from the NPCI also if there are in such cases.
And then Rupali ma'am has one question. Probably I will rephrasing it. Basically, say in a bank NPA case, probably there may be some fraud, and जिसमें ED का भी involvement है और other government agencies involved है. बैंक आपको बोलता है इसका forensic audit करो. तो अपने को काफी सारे डेटा जरूरत पड़ सकती है which may be in the possession of ED or other government agencies. So whether if you want to carry out forensic investigation on behalf of bank, lending bank, whether these kind of agencies help you out और कैसे रहता है? Because बैंक के fraud के case में हो सकता है ED, CBI involved है, and other side bank is asking to your firm to carry out forensic investigation. Whether other government agencies help you out to carry out or giving you documents, anything for your forensic investigation on behalf of that.
ये बहुत अच्छा सवाल है रूपाली जी का कि how to get the data. So पहली तो बात है कि अगर हमें बैंक ने अगर हमें अपॉइंट किया है, so हम बैंकर को रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि वो इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग एजेंसी को एक लेटर ड्राफ्ट करके भी दे उनको कि भाई हमारे ऑडिटर्स अपॉइंट हुए हैं और हमें इनका फॉरेंसिक करवाना है, whether you can give us an access to the data. मेरे हिसाब से it is not possible to take the data out of the office of the investigating agency or the government office. At the most, if the nature of the fraud is of such nature that the investigating agency believes that yes, it is necessary for the banker to do an investigation, he may probably permit the banker, but this could be on a case-to-case basis after discussion, and one will have to audit only at the office of the investigating agency. Getting the possession of that data from the investigating agency, in my views, may not be possible. Because once the data is given to an investigating agency, it cannot come out.
अच्छा हार्दिक भाई, request है if you can end the slideshow, so I can see tabular face of people who have attended participant. Yeah, thank you. Members, you can unmute yourself if you have any question.
Hello.
Yeah.
I have one question. Hardik, it is possible that client may be expecting a lot from when they give the forensic audit, but it's an investigation. The outcome may be positive, may not be positive. So if it is not positive, how we can handle it?
See, this is the biggest challenge, Anil bhai, because there are times when you hello. Yeah, you can hear me.
Yes.
See, I'll share an experience that we were in a lenders meet, and of course at that time this IBA circular was not there that to declare a fraud or not. It was for the lenders who were to decide whether a fraud has happened or not based on the findings of the forensic auditor. But my experience has shown that sometimes within the same lenders meet, two lenders have different views on the subject matter. Okay, bhai, ye forensic, ye fraud hai ki nahi hai. So naturally, some new questions are put forth to you from time and again. Especially from the party who may probably wish कि नहीं ये fraud होना चाहिए. So you will have to from time and again provide those necessary evidences. Let's see, this is the reason why I'm saying कि मेरे हिसाब से fraud नहीं है, or this is the nature of document which is not available to me, due to which I'm not able to conclude completely. So this may probably warrant some additional investigation by you at a later date. So it depends on the nature and the quality of audit evidences which are available with you. And that is why I would always suggest that whenever we are reporting, our report should have all the necessary evidences available. So jitna ban sake utna ye questions kam hota hai. But of course, bankers keep on asking these questions time and again, for sure. We'll have to handle it with a lot of maturity. We have to handle it with a lot of evidence available in front of us, because only evidence speaks in forensic audit, nothing else.
Yeah, thank you.
Being a fact-finding report.
Yeah, thank you.
At times the banker may tell you also, okay, आप इसको fraud declare कर दो, आप इसको इस तरह declare कर दो, but somewhere you may probably have to put your foot down and tell the banker, see, I cannot do all this, because again, please remember, you can also be subject to some kind of a litigation or some kind of risk to litigation against you also. If you just report, I mean, you means in general I'm talking, anybody reports without any maturity here. So reporting has to be very, very sensitively done, very maturely done, and to an extent possible.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I think all questions, any questions more, I'll be happy to answer.
Nilesh Gore sir, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
First of all, my thanks from my bottom of my heart, Hardik sir. I have given you very, very short notice. I think probably you were on the way to office and I called you and I told you that because of sudden illness of our faculty, and then you happily agreed to do this session with a very short notice. My sincere thanks to you. And now I will request CA Nilesh Gore sir to present formal vote of thanks. Nilesh ji, over to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First of all, Hardik sir, as Asava sir said, it is really, we are all thankful to you for this sudden urgent basis you have made yourself available, and that too all the way with the full-fledged presentation and PPT, because PPT is a line through which the entire session takes place, and for a subject like forensic audit, which is new to most of us. I am using the word Asava sir, correct me if I am wrong. It is new to most of us. It may be senior, may be junior.
all are at par and at junior level students of yours, Hardik sir, and you have guided in such a nice and systematic manner. Your PPT is also class apart, and the various aspects you touched and the questions you handled in the lucid way shows your mastery over the subject. So on behalf of Thane branch of ICAI, all the council members present, central council, RCMs and branch council members, and all my fellow members present, we present a hearty vote of thanks to you. And in this pollution-free, noise-free world and on the Zoom, like we used to clap on the, in our school, you know, this is the way I honor and I clap on behalf and express my respects to you on this. Thank you so much, Hardik sir. Right? Okay.
Thank you all participants also joining in large number. Hardik sir, I told you we are expecting around 140, 150, but today we have an attendance of 180. So you can guess what kind of interest people have on this subject.
I am also very much thankful and grateful. Please don't call me sir, and I am nobody's senior or junior here. I'm a professional colleague. Everybody, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you very much everybody once again.
Okay. By this, now I declare end of today's seminar. Please join us or please register yourself for our Vocal for Local Speaker Series 7, which will be on 22nd to 24th July. Necessary announcement will be given to you in a short while. एक 5-10 मिनट में आपके पास आपके SMS या WhatsApp पे आ जाएगा registration procedure and details. Thank you everyone. Now I formally declare end of today's session. Thank you.